It was 2:47 a.m. The city was sleeping, but Ryan was wide awake. His room was dark except for the small light of his old laptop. The screen showed a single line. Application rejected. For a long minute, he just stared at it. His hands were shaking. That was the third rejection this month. He had worked day and night, skipped meals, skipped sleep, and still, it wasn't enough. He leaned back in his chair, eyes burning from tiredness. His small room smelled like coffee and failure. He whispered to himself, "Maybe I'm just not made for this." But deep down, a small voice inside him screamed, "No, not yet." Ryan stood up, walked to the mirror, and stared at his reflection. He saw a tired man, eyes full of pain, but something in those eyes refused to die. He remembered his father's words before he passed away. "Son, the world doesn't care how tired you are. It only respects results. Work harder, even when you feel broken." That sentence hit him again, like a punch to the heart. He looked around the room. On the wall there were old sticky notes, goals, dreams, deadlines, all crossed out, unfinished. He picked up one note that said, "Make it happen this year." He smiled sadly and said, "Not this year, Mom, but maybe now." He opened his laptop again, deleted everything he had written, and started from zero. His eyes were red, his hands were shaking, but his focus was stronger than ever. The world outside was silent, but inside that small room, a storm was rising. At that moment, he made a decision. No more complaining, no more excuses, no more waiting for luck. From now on, he would work fucking harder. He didn't know how or when, but he promised himself, "One day, they'll remember my name." Outside, the first light of morning touched the window. The world was waking up, but Ryan had already started his next battle. He didn't have money, fame, or support. Only one thing: fire. As he typed faster and faster, a strange energy filled the room. He wasn't working for success anymore. He was fighting for survival. And sometimes, that's what it takes. He didn't realize it then, but that night, the night of decision, would change everything. Because when the world sleeps and one man decides to rise, destiny starts to listen. The sun was up, but Ryan hadn't slept. His eyes were tired, his body weak, but his mind was on fire. He made a promise last night, to change everything. And for the first time in a long time, he meant it. He looked at the clock. 6:15 a.m. He had exactly 1 hour to get ready for his morning job. He worked at a small cafe in the city, washing dishes and cleaning tables. It wasn't his dream job, but it was the only way to pay rent and buy food. As he walked through the cold streets, Ryan kept repeating the same words in his head. "Work harder. Don't complain. Just move." The cafe was already busy when he arrived. His manager shouted, "Ryan, you're late again." Ryan didn't argue. He just nodded and started cleaning. His hands moved fast, his back hurt, but he kept going. Every plate he washed, every table he wiped. It was another step toward his dream. During his short lunch break, he sat in the corner with a notebook. While others scrolled through their phones, Ryan wrote ideas, business plans, designs, goals, anything that could move him forward. He knew no one would believe in him yet, but he didn't care. He believed in himself now. After his shift, he went straight to the public library. He didn't have Wi-Fi at home, so the library became his new office. He read books about success, hard work, and mindset. Every word felt like fuel for his soul. He stayed there until closing time, taking notes and learning skills. By the time he reached home, it was almost midnight. His body screamed for rest, but his heart said, "Not yet." He opened his laptop again and started working on his small project, an online design portfolio. He wanted to build something that could change his life. It wasn't perfect, but every line, every click was a step closer to freedom. He failed many times that week. His designs got rejected, his ideas ignored, and some nights he cried quietly. But he never stopped. Because somewhere deep inside, Ryan knew. Great things take time. People around him started noticing his change. His friend Jake said, "Bro, why are you killing yourself like this? Take a break." Ryan smiled and said, I'll rest when I've earned it. The world still didn't know his name. No one was clapping for him yet. But he didn't need applause. He was fighting a silent battle, one that only he could see. And every morning when he looked in the mirror, he saw progress. Small, invisible, but real. He wasn't there yet, but he was on the way. And that made all the difference. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Ryan was still working at the cafe during the day and building his dream at night. Sleep became a luxury. His eyes were always red, his body tired, but he kept moving forward. He had learned one truth. Nobody is coming to save you. You must save yourself. One evening, after another long shift, Ryan got a message on his laptop. It was from a client, someone interested in his design work. His heart started racing. Finally, a chance. He worked all night creating the best design he could. He checked every detail, double-checked every color. When he finally clicked send, he smiled for the first time in weeks. He whispered, "This is it. This could change everything." 3 days later, the reply came. It was short, only one sentence. "Sorry, your work doesn't meet our standard." Ryan just stared at the screen. Again, another rejection. Something broke inside him that day. He slammed his laptop shut and sat on the floor. For the first time in months, he felt hopeless. The silence in the room was heavy. He whispered, "Maybe Jake was right. Maybe I'm wasting my time." Tears filled his eyes. He thought about all the nights he stayed awake, all the sacrifices, all the pain. For what? Nothing seemed to work. He closed his eyes and thought about his father again. Work harder, even when you feel broken. But this time, those words didn't feel powerful. They felt heavy. He walked outside into the cold air. The city lights were shining, people laughing, cars rushing. Everyone seemed to be living, except him. He looked up at the sky and said, "Why me? Why does it have to be so hard?" No answer. Just silence. He sat on a bench near the cafe. His hands were trembling from exhaustion. For the first time, he thought of quitting, going back to a normal life, no dreams, no struggle. But then, something happened. A small boy walked by, holding his mother's hand. The boy looked at Ryan and smiled. It was a simple smile, innocent, full of hope. In that moment, Ryan remembered why he started. He wasn't doing this for money or fame. He was doing it to prove that it was possible, that hard work could change a life. He took a deep breath. The pain was still there, but the fire came back. Slow, but strong. He stood up, looked at the cafe window where his reflection stared back, and whispered, "I'm not done yet." Then he walked home, opened his laptop, and started again, from zero. That night, Ryan didn't rise because he was strong. He rose because he refused to stay broken. Weeks passed after that long night of pain. Ryan didn't give up this time. Something inside him had changed. He stopped expecting life to be fair. He just worked, harder than ever. Every morning before sunrise, he wrote down 3 words on a small paper. Work, learn, repeat. Those words became his new rule for living. He kept sending his designs to different clients, 20, 30, even 50 messages a week. Most never replied. Some said no, but a few said, maybe. And maybe was enough to keep him going. One afternoon, while working at the cafe, Ryan received a call. The number was unknown. He almost ignored it, but something told him to answer. "Hello?" he said, his voice tired. "Is this Ryan?" a woman's voice replied. "I saw your design work online. We'd like to hire you for a small project." Ryan froze. For a second, he didn't believe what he heard. His heart started beating fast. Yes, I can do it," he said quickly. It wasn't a big job, just a logo for a startup company. But to him, it was everything. That night, he worked like a man possessed. He didn't just design, he created with passion. Every click, every shape, every color meant something. When he sent the final file, he whispered, This time, I gave my heart. 3 days later, the company replied, "We love it. It's perfect." Ryan couldn't believe it. For the first time, someone said yes. He sat in silence, smiling to himself, not because of money, and it wasn't much, but because his work mattered. He took a deep breath and said, "This is only the beginning." From that day, everything changed slowly. He started getting small projects. People began noticing his style, his discipline. His late nights started to mean something, but with every new level came a new problem. As his online work grew, his cafe job began to suffer. He was often late, exhausted, distracted. His manager noticed and said, "Ryan, you need to choose, this cafe or your dream." It was the hardest choice of his life. The cafe job gave him safety, a steady paycheck. His dream gave him freedom, but no guarantee. That night, Ryan sat in his dark room again, staring at his laptop and his cafe uniform. One represented comfort, the other represented risk. He closed his eyes and remembered his father's voice again. "If you want to fly, you have to leave the ground." He picked up the cafe uniform, folded it carefully, and placed it aside. He had made his decision. Tomorrow he would quit. Not because he was ready, but because he refused to live small. The morning sun touched Ryan's window. It looked like an ordinary day, but deep inside he knew this day would change everything. He got ready, wore his cafe uniform one last time, and walked through the familiar streets. Every step felt heavy. Every memory from that place came rushing back. The tired mornings, the angry manager, the laughter of coworkers. When he reached the cafe, his manager looked at him and said, "Ryan, you're late again." Ryan smiled softly and replied, "I know, and it's my last time being late." The manager frowned. "What do you mean?" Ryan took a deep breath and said, "I'm quitting. I'm going after something bigger." For a moment, there was silence. Then the manager laughed. "Bigger? You think the world is waiting for you out there? Good luck, dreamer." Ryan just nodded. He wasn't angry. He understood. Not everyone would see his vision. He handed in his uniform, shook hands with his coworkers, and walked out. The wind felt different that day, cold but free. As he stood outside the cafe, looking up at the sky, he whispered, "I have no plan B. It's all or nothing now." He went straight home, sat in front of his laptop, and started planning. No boss, no schedule, just him and his dream. The first week felt amazing. He worked from morning till midnight, accepting every small project he could find. The money was little, but the happiness was real. He felt alive. But soon reality hit him hard. Bills started piling up. Clients paid late. Some disappeared after getting the work done. He started skipping meals to save money. His rent was due and his savings were almost gone. There were nights when he stared at the ceiling, wondering if he made a huge mistake. But then, he would look at his notebook, the one that said, "Work, learn, repeat." And he would whisper, "I didn't come this far to give up now." He worked even harder, sending emails, learning new skills, improving his designs. Some nights his hands trembled from fatigue, but his heart refused to stop. Then one night, while checking his inbox, he saw a new message. It was from a company in another country. They had seen his work and wanted to collaborate on a big project. Ryan couldn't believe his eyes. He read the message again and again. This was the break he had been waiting for, but there was a catch. They needed the full project in 5 days. It was almost impossible. He leaned back, smiled slightly, and said, 5 days, then I'll work 5 times harder." The decision was made. No sleep, no breaks, no excuses. For the next 5 days, Ryan would face the toughest challenge of his life, one that would test his mind, body, and spirit. The clock struck midnight. Ryan sat in front of his laptop, eyes burning, fingers shaking. The room was dark except for the dim light from his screen. 5 days. That was all he had to complete the biggest project of his life. He whispered to himself, "No one's coming to help. This is on me." Day 1 started strong. He worked for 12 hours straight. No breaks, no distractions. His mind was sharp, his heart focused, But as the hours passed, his body began to fail. His back ached, his head throbbed, his eyes stung. Still, he refused to stop. He grabbed a cup of coffee and said quietly, "Keep going. Just keep going." By day 2, the lack of sleep started showing. His thoughts became blurry, his hands heavy. But every time he wanted to rest, he remembered the rejection emails, the laughter of those who never believed in him. He turned pain into power. On the third night, something went wrong. His laptop suddenly froze. The project file crashed. Half his work disappeared. For a full minute, Ryan sat frozen. Then anger hit him hard. He slammed his fist on the table, shouting, "Why now?" He wanted to break down, to cry, to quit. But instead, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "If I stop now, all the pain means nothing." He started again, from zero. Every click, every line, every design was built with pain, but also with purpose. By day 4, he hadn't eaten properly. His eyes were red, his body weak. He started talking to himself to stay awake. One more hour, just one more hour. It was no longer about the project. It was about proving that he could survive anything. At 4 a.m., his vision blurred, and his head dropped to the keyboard. He fell asleep without meaning to. When he woke up an hour later, the sun was already rising. Panic rushed through his veins. Only one day left. He stood up, washed his face with cold water, and stared at his reflection in the mirror. His face looked dead tired, but his eyes still burned with fire. He whispered, "You said you'd work fucking harder, now prove it." And he did. The entire last day, he worked non-stop. No food, no rest, no comfort. Just pure focus. His heart raced, his mind screamed, but his hands didn't stop. Finally, as the clock hit 11:59 p.m. on the 5th day, he pressed send. It was done. He sat back, closed his eyes, and felt tears rolling down his cheeks. Not from sadness, but from relief. Whether he won or failed didn't matter anymore. He had become someone new, someone unstoppable. He whispered softly, "I survived the storm." The morning light filled Ryan's small room. His laptop was still open, the screen showing the sent message. He hadn't slept all night. His body felt empty, like all energy had been drained. But deep inside, there was peace. He whispered, "I did it." For the first time in years, he didn't care about the result. He only cared that he didn't quit. 2 days passed. No reply. Ryan started to worry again. His rent was due. His fridge was empty. He thought, maybe it didn't work out. Maybe I failed again. But then, on the 3rd morning, his phone buzzed. A new email. He opened it slowly, hands shaking. The message read, "Ryan, your work was excellent. We're impressed. We'd like to hire you for long-term projects." Ryan froze. His eyes filled with tears. He read it again and again, making sure it was real. Then he laughed. A real laugh, full of relief and joy. He fell to his knees, tears dropping on the floor, and whispered, "Finally, finally." That moment was more than victory. It was transformation, from a rejected dreamer to a respected creator, from working in a cafe to working for himself, from tired hands to a proud heart. But the truth was clear. It wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was the result of hard, painful, endless effort. As days turned into months, Ryan's name started spreading. More clients came, more success followed. But he never forgot the nights when nobody believed in him. He kept the same old notebook beside his desk, the one that said, "Work, learn, repeat." Whenever someone asked him the secret to his success, he smiled and said, "There's no secret. Just work fucking harder, especially when it hurts." But success didn't change him. It humbled him. Because he now knew the real reward wasn't the money or fame or recognition. The real reward was becoming the kind of person who never gives up. One evening, Ryan visited the same cafe where he once worked. The manager was still there serving customers. The manager looked surprised. "Ryan, You look different. What are you doing now? Ryan smiled gently and replied, Still working, just harder than before. He left a generous tip on the counter, not to show off, but to remind himself of where he started. That night, he stood under the same streetlight where he once felt broken and hopeless. He looked up at the sky and whispered, Dad, I made it. Then he smiled, not because the world finally saw his worth, but because he saw it himself. And that is the truth of every great story. Success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who refuse to stop.